everybody out there listening. Welcome to this week's Zoom chat, and I'm here with Jose Sibaja. Jose, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thanks so much for inviting me, man. This is such a pleasure and such a treat to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. Full disclosure, Jose and I've known each other for about 12 or 15 years, something like that
A
now.
long time,
A long
a
time.
long time, man.
Long enough for us to tell inside jokes and not have to disclose them later. Um, so Jose, I mean, a lot of people out there know you from Boston Brass or playing from Ricky Martin, but I don't think everybody knows about your early life a little bit. Can you talk about that in Costa Rica and how you got your start playing the trumpet?
Yeah, man. So, first of all, I want to say thank you, and I want to, you know, say thank you to the people that are out there listening and watching. Um, I started playing the trumpet when I was about 13 years old, and I started playing the trumpet seriously because I had a knee injury. Because what I did, I love soccer, and I used to be a soccer player. So I had a bad knee injury, and I couldn't work for 2 weeks, and I already played trumpet. So I started going like, okay, should I like walk up straight, or should I hop around for a living? So I decided to hop around and walk straight too, because I kept playing soccer, and I got all my knees all messed up. So that's how I started, and I started in Alajuela, which is where I was born, the town where I was born, and they had a high school band,
Hmm.
and that's how it started. I trumpet because my mom always had Latin music in my house playing, and Latin music is full of trumpets, man. So I always had that sound in my head, and I like the I'm trying to find a word in English.
Sound.
Yeah, not the sound, but lo viril, the
Ah.
powers of the trumpet, the victory, glorious sound, the big and natural sound of the trumpet.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. The big and natural sound is always the way to go.
yeah.
What about outside of Latin music? I'm guessing you mean like salsa music. Was there any like particular trumpet player you heard in that genre that you knew of earlier, or was it just what was around?
Just I didn't even know who was playing because he was always in the background in my house with my mom was listening to. And when I started playing the trumpet, a great friend of mine who lives in Chicago now, his name is Edgar Campos. He gave me a tape that I had on one side. It was Maurice Andre
Hmm.
and Timofey Dorchitzer, and on the other side it was Maynard Ferguson and Arturo Sandoval. Yeah, so that's when I was hooked.
Yeah,
You know, and yeah,
and I bet you wore that cassette tape out,
oh
right?
yeah, and I guarded that with my life.
Yeah.
And I had a Walkman, man, Sony.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then I always had a budget for batteries because there was being nothing I would hate more when the thing would start slowing down and you was and the music would like yeah.
That's pretty cool though. Yeah, because my teacher made cassette tapes for me in high school. I know I wore through those things to where the pitch had
Mhm.
definitely changed and stuff. But you listen so much more that way.
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah, and
remember
it
what
was
was on there.
and for the youngsters that are watching, it was pretty awesome when you always had to have a pencil with you. Remember when
Oh, so you could rewind it just a
yeah,
little bit.
or when the thing would get stuck, you're like yeah,
That's right. In case the wires got crossed, the tape
uh-huh,
got crossed in there.
uh-huh.
That's very cool. Was anybody else in your family musical? I mean, other than what you heard now, it's just you, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, and were you just like playing in school band up to a point?
I was playing. I started playing the glockenspiel, but don't hold that against me, please.
That seems like a pretty neutral instrument. It's like it's not
So
so egregious like clarinet or something.
yeah, it's funny that I admit to that publicly, but I do. I'm a pretty brave man.
Yeah.
So, um, that's how I started, and I used to play everything by ear.
Yep.
I didn't, I didn't learn how to read music until later on.
When was that?
Um, I was 32. No, it was within 2 years. When
Okay.
I started playing. Look, I started to go to solfege lessons. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, so you were doing solfege lessons when you were a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really cool. Was it
Yeah.
like
Jens always gets super impressed when I start solfeging. I'm like, dude, it's like reading the newspaper for me. It's how I learn.
was it fixed though?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I figured out how to unfix it. I'm not the best singer, man.
I know that.
Yeah.
Although I've heard you do La Bamba.
No, have
Yeah.
you
I
never heard you never heard me do opera though.
that's true. That's okay.
No, it's not. You're missing out, man. Ask the boys from Boston, right? They'll tell you.
Well, you do a mean La Bamba. I've seen you do it. I've seen you do it. So,
Yeah.
what about other people you were listening to? I mean, I know you went to Eastern Music Festival when you were in high school. Wynton was there. Can you talk about that a little
That
bit?
was actually my first year of college. Um, when I I went to study to Miami, to New Orleans School of the Arts for a
Hmm.
semester.
Okay.
After that, I transferred to the University of Miami. My teacher, Gil Johnson, was teaching at both places. Um, and my first summer in Miami, I wanted to go to Eastern Music Festival, but I had no money, man. So I submitted a tape, and they said they would love to have me, but they couldn't cover all my expenses. So I said, okay, I guess I'm just gonna stay in Miami. And and I was lucky enough that Wynton heard my tape, and he always gave a scholarship to an African American student to go to EMF. And he said that year he would bend the rules and he would give me the scholarship to go to EMF. So thanks to Winton, I got to spend one of the most significant summers of my life musically, man.
Yeah.
It was a great place. I played the concerto competition. I happened to win the concerto competition. I played with the orchestra, um, and that opened up a lot of doors for me.
Was that the
Uh,
Artunium? Is that what you played? Am I remembering
I
that
think
right?
so. I think so.
So, so you obviously spent some time with Wynton that summer,
Hmm.
and you were how old? You said like 17 or something like this?
18.
18?
Hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't trying to say you were graduating high school early. Don't get me wrong, but
Hey,
but
man.
so what about what do you remember about spending time with Wynton, especially at that age? Because I mean, he was really doing a lot of stuff. He's always doing a lot of stuff, but he
Just
had his both feet in both
Yeah,
lakes at that time.
just his kindness, and he was always, always trying to push you forward.
Yeah.
I remember one of the nights he was there. We went to a jam session, and I play a little bit of jazz, but it was pretty sad, man. It was pretty bad. So he wanted me to play, so I play, and I play a solo, and I came, and I was like, oh man, that was awful. That was terrible. And I was all bummed out. And then after the jam session, he came up. I mean, he's like, "Hey, man, that was good, man." And I'm like, "Come on." I was like, "Come on, man." And I was like, "No, man." It's like you were doing your own thing. You have a voice, and you were, you know, trying to find the best part of your voice, and that came across. So whatever that meant, I knew that he was just being nice and trying to push me forward,
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
not to get discouraged and keep expanding my horizons and my boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what a great educator does. So I think he's such a consummate educator.
Yeah.
On top of all his artistic accolades and how incredible of a trumpet player he is, he's always somebody I always looked up, um, for all of that, but especially for his kindness and his love to educate. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, and do you keep in touch with him? Have you guys talk every once in a while?
it's funny because when I was younger, um, I would see him once in a while in New York, and he was always like, "Hey man, you have my number, call. Hey man, you have my number, call." But I feel like, what am I gonna? When is so busy, I'm gonna go like, "Hey man, you know, I'm practicing." He's doing 25,000 things. And it's funny because a friend of mine actually met him through the years, and he says, "I'm good friends with Jose, this and that, blah blah blah," and when he immediately says, "Hey man, tell Jose to call me." That's why I felt so bad. I see him a couple of times, and he's always, 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 always a special man.
Yeah.
Such a cool guy, such a great hang.
Yeah.
You always learn with him.
Right.
Every
Yeah.
time you're around Winton, you learn. You
Yeah.
know, you
I
learn.
mean, I think we're pretty much the same age, and I'm sure anybody around this age would say that Winton was the hero growing up, right? I mean, I remember
I didn't.
reading
I didn't really hear Winton until later on in,
like,
in in Costa Rica. Like maybe a year and a half later, after I got my first tape. You know,
yeah,
and I heard Winton, and then I started hearing other people. I remember start having a recording of Gerard Schwartz playing the Clark solos.
hmm
That was incredible. Uh, so at that point, I was like, "Hey man, if I want to do this, I gotta practice."
So
This guy started like,
what were you practicing in high school? What were you doing?
my teacher in Costa Rica. His name is Ricardo Vargas, and he studied with Chicklets. So I was really, you know a little bit about that. So I was lucky enough to have him as a teacher when I was very young.
hmm
So I was already, learning about sound and air and sing and air and all of that when I was young. Um, so I think I was pretty lucky to have a teacher that had that much information with him.
Was
You
he
know?
having you play some of those flow study etudes even when
Oh
you were
yeah.
young?
Hmm.
I think they're in a book now. I have one somewhere. They look sort of like this, but a different
Yeah,
color. So,
that book's pretty good, man.
thanks, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
some
Yeah.
guys did it. Some dudes, I don't know who they are, but that's pretty good. They know what they're doing for what they're doing.
So, so then, and then you came to the U.S. and then you studied at you said a semester at the New World School of the Arts, but then you were at University of Miami with Gil
Hmm.
Johnson. So I wanted you to talk about Gil as a teacher, and then just all the other stuff.
Gil was a phenomenal teacher, man. Gil was he was a an encyclopedia of the trumpet. Gil.
Yeah.
Gil, he had an answer for every problem you had. And funny to say that I never heard Gil play a note in my lessons.
For people who are younger, maybe that are not quite sure who Mr. Johnson was, principal trumpeter of the Philadelphia Orchestra for a number of years. He's one of the trumpet players on the famous Gabrielli recording, you know, and just a huge influence in the 20th century trumpet playing.
Hmm.
Do you remember any specific things that you came to him with or problems that he had answers with?
It's funny because you know how when you are 17 and 18 years old and you can play a little bit, you think you're all of that in a bag of chips. So I came in and first he was really nice. He was like, "Okay, kid, let's see how you do this." Blah 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 blah. So I played, and he was super nice about it. Um, when I came into the studio, he sat me down and he saw me play for 50 minutes, and he said, "Okay." He said, "We're gonna have to make some changes." And then I was playing low,
Mm-hmm.
so he had me move my mouthpiece up, and that was a huge thing for me. So I had to. He had me play. He had me playing G's, second line G's for about 2 months.
with like a new embouchure, basically. And it
Hmm.
only took a couple months for it to set in, I guess.
Because that's all I could do.
Yeah.
Do you
Right.
understand what I'm saying? The lessons were about that.
Yeah.
It was a full hour of G's. Imagine how much patience he had. You
So
know.
after you kind of worked out of that, what kind of
Well,
stuff?
the funniest thing about this, Mark, is that I thought I was not gonna be able to play after that, man. I was like 2 months of playing only G's. I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to play anything else. I'm gonna have to start from zero again. You know. And I was very thorough about it because I respected him so much. I was like, whatever he says, I'm gonna do.
Hmm.
So I did it to the T. And then when he started giving me attitudes, everything it was like it went like everything lined up. Boom. I
Wow.
was like, so I was like, okay, man, this guy and he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it was amazing because the exercises that he had me do, all of them had to do with getting prepared to play, with breathing on time,
Hmm.
and also um, making sure that my lips were in the perfect place before the tone production happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It does
Yeah.
make sense.
So he had me breathe through my nose
Okay.
most of the time at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then when I switched to breathing through my mouth, I was what I like to tell people, I was a trained monkey.
Yeah.
And I was like that, you know.
And then, so what kind of materials was he giving you? You remember, like, was he assigning you Arbin and Clark, or was it a lot of etudes, or?
At the beginning or
Well,
throughout?
well, let's do two things. Maybe after your embouchure change kicked in, what was the next step after that?
A lot of San Jacome. A lot of San Jacome.
Yeah.
Never an excerpt.
Right. Right.
Never an excerpt.
And a lot of St.
If I
Jacomb's, like
if I
etudes, you
wanted,
mean?
yeah, San Jacome, the 12 big studies, and then also you got the Collinear preludes in San Jacome,
Mm-hmm.
and then you also have the God, the 36. I just
Oh, the Busquet,
that was
Busquet,
my kids
etudes.
play them all the time, and I can't. Yeah, I'm getting old. Anyway, so yeah, and yeah, and then some arbans. He had me do arbans on my own.
Yeah.
He was like, he would hear 2 or 3 bars of arbans, and then he'd be like, okay, you're doing them correctly or you're not.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and he would focus mostly on like the the long, big long studies.
Right. Like the arpeggios or the intervals or things like
No,
that,
no, no, no,
or
like
you mean the etudes?
yeah, like yeah, those, and then sometimes a lot of Charlier,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, beast once in a while.
Yeah.
Um, um, oh my God, man,
Con- Conconi, normal stuff.
Conconi, yeah, exactly.
I thought I saw the C word coming out, so that
Hmm.
was it. So
Yeah.
and I know you were really close to him too. I mean, kind of sort of off the court, so to speak. I mean, he was.
Hmm.
You talk about that, like what was his mentorship like away from just teaching trumpet?
He was old school, very old school. So um, it was like having a dad.
Yeah.
It was like having a dad. I went to him so young. I went to him. I was 17, and then my parents were in Costa Rica, so I guess he felt, I don't know. He felt like he had to keep me out of trouble, man.
Yeah.
Which I something I'll never be able to repay because I was a punk. I'm still a
That
punk.
that would have been a
I was,
task. I was going to say. So
yeah. So, but it was fantastic because I learned so much, not only about trumpet. I learned so much about, here is a person that it was the principal player of a major symphony orchestra. Um, so I learned a lot about, you know, being in orchestra, what it meant to be a professional in an orchestra, to all of that. And actually, I got a job playing in the National Symphony Orchestra in Venezuela when I was about 19, and that's the first time I stopped my bachelor's.
So you told me you'd stopped it twice. Was that was the first time that was to go down
Yeah,
there and play? How long did you do that?
I did that for 2.5 years.
And then did you come back to Miami after that?
I went to New York for 3 months.
What did you do in New York for 3 months?
I was doing a lot of recording, a lot of salsa, recording a lot of salsa,
Yeah.
and I was starting to. I took a lesson. I don't remember who it was. It could have been with Ghoul, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
But
Or Chris Gecker. I don't remember, man. Um, I don't remember. I took lessons from somebody, some people in New York. At the time I didn't care
yeah.
about anything. I was just trying to get back to the States and for people to listen to me and well, whatever. And I was in a very conflicted moment in my
Hmm.
life as
Hmm.
a trumpet player because I, what I thought my dream was not.
You thought it was to be an orchestra player, and then you found out it
Hmm.
wasn't.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I was very confused. And then I started thinking about doing solo stuff like hardcore.
Hmm.
Um, but then I had more fun playing salsa music.
Well, well, yeah. I
so
guess.
but I kept doing it. I kept playing. But I was like, yeah, I'm weird that way. I'm strange that way.
Well, you like to do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I have issues. Let's just say that. So,
So,
that point in my life, it was fun. It was funny dueling because I I didn't know what was gonna happen.
yeah.
So I was in a limbo, in a mental limbo. All I
What that?
knew is I had to keep playing trumpet, and I had to do it to the best of my abilities, and I just had to keep playing trumpet well.
But I mean, at that point, you're only like what, 23, something like that.
21, 22.
22. Everybody's confused when they're 21, 22,
Mm-hmm,
whether we think we are or not. You know,
mm-hmm.
maybe Chris Martin is not confused at 21. I think he's the only one.
It was difficult. It was difficult because I had moved to another country.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to make that decision to leave Venezuela and come back, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But I remember as if it was today, man. When Brahms second came the second time around, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I mean, it's great music,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be behind the music stand doing
Oh,
this. I would rather be out there listening to it.
wow. Wow.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you went back
And
to
then and
school.
then and it was fine the first time around because everything is new.
Yeah.
But when the repertoire started coming around, I would have a great time with the great pieces of music, with the great literature. And then when it's like Mozart 40 or something like that would come around, I'd be like, okay, this is great, but not here. This is awesome on the other side over there,
Yeah.
not here. You know. So that was difficult to accept and to digest. And I had a long time of struggle with accepting that.
Yeah.
But that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, it's hard at that age, right? I mean, we're all at that age. If you're in a big music school like Miami or somewhere, and you're working on excerpts, and your colleagues are working on excerpts, and you're still listening to recordings, idolizing certain people, and then to
Hmm.
come to that conclusion is not easy, you know. So what did you do? So you went to New York, and then did you come back to Miami after that?
I worked to New York for 3 months.
Well, yeah, the 3 months, and then after the 3 months,
Yeah. Well, but this is the fun part. The fun part is I left New York because it's too cold. I'm not kidding. I
I
was
know,
telling the truth.
I know. I think
I was doing a session like at 2 in the morning in Manhattan. I finished, and I had to take the Q. I remember,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to go to Queens, and and um and it was 2 in the morning, and the train wouldn't come, and it was December, and it was cold, and I was down there, and then down there is not as cold, but at that time it gets bad, and then the train wouldn't come. 2:45. The train showed up at 3 in the morning, and when I got out and I got home at 4 something in the morning, I was like, "There's no way I'm leaving." So I had a tour in Europe with this artist called India,
Mm-hmm.
and it was for the rest of the month of December. And then when we came back, we had to do New Year's in Miami. So I did that, and when we got to Miami, I was like, "Kids, love you. I'm staying here. Bye bye."
Because I mean,
That
Nashville's like the North Pole for you, right? I mean,
oh
that's as
yeah,
high up as you can go.
oh yeah,
So if
oh
people that
yeah.
are watching don't know why I'm saying that's because you teach at Vanderbilt. So,
Hmm.
but so you stayed in Miami, and then what happened?
Then um, I have been talking to Gil about the possibility of coming back. He was like, "Don't come back." He's like, "Stay over there. Stay there." He says, You belong there." He said he used to say that to me.
Meaning further south
No, no, New York.
in New York.
Yeah. He said, "You belong there." You know? And I was like, "I don't belong here, man." That's, it's like white bears belong here. I don't belong here. I gotta go to Sunshine, man. But
So you,
so I went back to study with him.
yeah,
I went back. That was my goal. My goal was to keep studying with him because he was so knowledgeable of the trumpet, man.
yeah,
And everything that had to do with trumpet. Um, and then when I went back, the funny thing is, every time I went back to study with Gil, my love for orchestral music would come back.
right,
It was not only until I was encountered with boring music, but not boring, boring for the trumpet player,
right.
that I would be like, I would, it's like when they give you a shock, it's like,
Did Mr. Johnson talk about the Philly Orchestra very much? Did he tell stories? Was he that kind of
oh,
old school guy? Right, I'm imagining that.
oh
Right.
yeah, oh
Was
yeah.
he? Because I mean, I never had a chance to meet him. I know several of you guys that stayed with him. Was he? Did he talk about the orchestra fondly, or did he have like kind of conductor stories that
Oh no, no, he loved the orchestra.
yeah,
He loved the orchestra. He didn't like the politics around the orchestra,
of course.
like every orchestra player. But he loved the orchestra. He loved playing in the orchestra. He
Yeah,
loved the music he made with the orchestra.
yeah,
Um, I think that he had a sort of relationship with Ormandy, even though Ormandy really liked him,
yeah, yeah.
you know. Um, but yeah, he told a funny story that when they were doing some rehearsal, and then the Olympic ping pong team from China came to the rehearsal. And then Ormandy introduced him to the orchestra, and Ormandy said to the orchestra that it was fantastic that the Chinese team had given up their tickets to go watch the Phillies tonight. Instead, they're going to come to watch the orchestra perform. So basically, Gil said, "Hey, Maestro, can we have the tickets?" Pretty funny.
Do you have any favorite recordings of him?
I love the Pines of Rome recording,
Hmm.
the Poem of Ecstasy that he plays. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, he did a recording of Chai 6 that I love,
yeah.
and Chai 5,
Isn't there a really
and
great Blue
then
Mina recording
Blue
with him?
Mean, the Blue Mean.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah, anything that was super lyrical, Gil, you would just excel at it.
yeah,
He was such a beautiful, soulful player like that.
yeah. So how long was it on this tour in Miami before was Ricky Martin the next thing after?
Well, I started playing in the opera in Miami and with the orchestra there while I was there, and
Hmm.
I was doing a lot of recording work, a lot of session work in Miami, and and I would also play salsa gigs, and you know, um, and at a session I met this guy, this saxophone player. Well, it was one night we were doing the opera, and we finished the opera, and back then we had beepers.
Yeah.
Remember
Okay.
those?
Yeah. 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 I
Yeah.
never had one, but yeah, I do
So
remember.
I am in my tuxedo coming back. I stopped by at the school because I was gonna play for half an hour, 45 minutes before going to bed, and I get a beeper. So I call, and it's these guys at the studio. They had problems with the trumpet player. The trumpet player had some issue with the book, or he was in a bad mood. So they said they were going to finish the session. So they let the trumpet player go. But everybody came back to the studio, and they were calling me to see if I could go and do the session because they were stuck there and they needed to finish this tonight. I didn't want to go, but I went. I was like, oh my god. So I got in my car and I went, and I played the session. I am a clown, so when I got to the session, everybody relaxed and it was a good time and blah 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 blah. So the sax player after the session, like, hey man, I really love the way you play, but I love your demeanor and how you came and everything was cool and we did this. This sounds great. Give me your phone number. I gave him my phone number. I didn't think anything of it. Um, so this guy played saxophone for Ricky Martin. So like 2 weeks later, they called me from Ricky Martin. And they were like, "We're looking for a trumpet player. Would you come and play in the rehearsal for us?" I said, like, "Sure, man." So I went. I played the rehearsal, and yeah.
Wow. So what year was this?
So I don't know, man. The 97,
Yeah.
98, yeah. So for the young people out there, doesn't matter how late it is, how tired you are, go to that gig. You never know what could happen, and then have a great attitude about it.
Yeah.
Don't be the dude that shows up and complains.
Yeah. And then so then you were with how long were you with Ricky Martin?
Oof, like 9 years,
Yeah. I was gonna say.
a
And
long time.
your hair was a lot different in the videos back then. Did you ever write that off in your taxes?
No, man, I didn't have to. I actually pay taxes.
So what were so then you go, I mean, you've gone from you've done a lot of things, right? Been recording, you played in orchestras, now you're playing with Ricky Martin. Uh, what did you learn about on tour about keeping your chops together?
It it was a challenge
Mm-hmm.
because not because of the type of show I was playing, but because I didn't have a place to do it
Mm-hmm.
most of the time. So I learned to play very soft
Yeah.
because I had to. If I wanted to play at the hotel, I couldn't play out.
Right.
So I would do half an hour at the hotel with a pillow and just playing soft. And then when we would get to the venue, I would try to get to the venue early
Mm-hmm.
and at least do half an hour, 45 minutes of pure classical fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but when the days that I had to travel, that was hard. Or the days that after a big party, it was hard.
Right.
You know, but what I learned the most is the to me, at least to me, what works for me. The most important thing is my aperture.
Not being too spread or too.
How I can handle my aperture. It's the most important thing for me.
What did you do to kind of control that, or were there materials you came to that you just knew worked?
I mean, when I started with Gil, it was a lot of high playing softly.
Mm-hmm.
So I would play simple melodies in the high register. I would make up melodies in the high register softly. I would do Clark in the high register softly.
Yeah.
I would do Conconi. I would transpose it up. Things like that.
Yeah. Did you did
And
you
always on the big mappies, even though I was playing the show with smaller mappies.
yeah. Were there books that you found like you just always had with you when you were on the road? Did you have like a set of things you carried, or was it you mostly just?
It was no, I mean, I, it was all memorized.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it was like train monkey memory. I mean, Yeah, Train Monkey Man. See, I
So,
can even remember that.
so you guys obviously did. I mean, like, so you were with Ricky Martin in the heyday of all that stuff, La Vida Loca and all this crazy stuff. What were and you went on a lot of. This is not a trumpet related question, at all, but when you were on all those late night shows, I mean, I've seen, you're with Letterman and Leno and all this stuff. What you have any funny stories from that stuff? There's got to
I,
be something.
I'm gonna tell you one funny story. I had no idea where I was.
What?
I had no idea where I was.
You had no
Like
idea where you were?
I didn't know what the shows were, man. All my life, man. My life was soccer and music. And if I was watching anything on the TV, it was soccer or music related. You
So you
know,
didn't know, like, oh, this is Jay Leno. He's got a lot of cars and a giant chin. You didn't know.
I had no idea, man. I had no idea. Remember the first time we went to do the the early show, the morning show?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like pissed. I was like, man, why do we have to be here so early?
Was this like the Today Show or one of these things like that?
Yeah, the one that they do in the morning where they had the
So,
artist, the concert of the artist.
okay.
I was like, why do we have to be here so early? Who comes up with an idea like this? This is so stupid. I was so stupid. It's so funny. And then Jay Leno. Jay Leno was awesome.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
He was
And
awesome. Because he came to the dressing room and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, and he talked to me. He's like, so you watched the show? I'm like, you want me to tell you what I should tell you or you want me to tell you the truth? He started laughing. He started laughing. He's like, I like you. Hey guys, I'm gonna show you my car. Blah blah blah. So we went and he showed us his car and yeah, the car that he brought that day.
wow. Yeah, because he has a giant collection of cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, that's cool. And Branford was on the show at that time too, right?
I guess I don't know.
Wynton's brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I
At one
Julian,
point, at one
Julian,
point, he was the band
Julian,
for a little
Julian.
bit.
I was at the Grammys and I was talking to what's his name, May, the guitar player from Queen,
Ah, I remember this kind of. Yeah, Brian May.
Brian May. I had no clue. We're talking about soccer. I had no clue. And then the guitar player from Ricky Martin, he was like behind Brian May going like this. I'm like, what's wrong with this dude? When I finished, he's like, oh, hey man, see you later, blah blah blah. And the guitar player's like, hey man, why didn't you introduce me? It's like, I don't know who that is. And my friend was like, he wanted to kill me.
Yeah, because it was
That's
Brian May.
Brian May. Yeah, that's the guitar player from Queen. And I'm like, what's Queen? I'm not kidding.
Now,
I'm
have you
not
learned?
kidding.
You've learned this since then,
Oh
though, right?
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. Well,
But so
good.
I laugh at myself a lot because of that.
Oh man.
I did know Pavarotti though.
Yeah. Did you meet Pavarotti at the Grammys?
Yeah, I met Pavarotti at the Grammys. I met Wynton was there one time,
Yeah.
and then we got when he played.
Yeah.
Remember when he played? I
Hmm.
played with Ricky Martin those Grammys too.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Do you still have those things recorded on VHS?
I don't have no man. When I find that stuff, it's on YouTube. You know, I was a disaster, dude. All I thought about was trumpet. It was so sad, and soccer. It was so sad. I had my mom is the one that kept a lot of things
Yeah.
because she would see it on the news or she was just and thank God because now I have stuff from those days. I was
So
a
so
disaster, a
so
disaster.
9 years with Ricky Martin, and then it was off the road for a little bit. What happened after that?
After that, I did it like a year and a half with Dallas Brass.
Right. Now, before you did with Dallas Brass, did you have a lot of brass quintet experience? Did you do that when you were in school or
Yeah, all
playing
the
gigs?
time, all the time, except for the time that I was in Ricky Martin.
Right.
I was doing a lot of brass quintet when I was in school, when I was in the University of Miami. When I started playing, a year after I started playing, I was in a brass quintet. Um, I remember having a tape from Canadian Brass
Hmm.
when I was and I must have been 14, 15.
Yeah.
and I thought it was awesome. And then I got a tape from Empire Brass with Rolf and Jam and all
Yeah,
that. And I don't want to insult anybody, but I didn't hear the Canadian Brass tape. Sorry, it's pretty epic. So
yeah,
yeah, so that was, I remember Class Brass was the
yeah.
tape.
Oh, that's like the one of the greatest recordings.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
to
then
me that was incredible.
yeah, I still listen to that CD.
Hmm.
Um, so what about
And then
so you
the funny thing about that is that I always remember Sam's name for some reason
yeah,
because of the name Pilafia. I was
right.
like, you know, yeah. So
I'm going to talk about him. I'm going to ask you about him
mm.
in a little bit. Um, so it was after Dallas Brass, and then you went to Boston Brass after this.
Yeah, after, well, I played I played in in Dallas Brass for about a year and something, and then I got a call to go on the road with this huge Spanish artist called Alejandro Sanz. So I took a leave of absence about 7 months or 8 months from Dallas Brass, and then when I came back is when the audition for Boston Brass happened. Then I took that audition and I got Boston Brass.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But that
and
was, see, that people don't know that guy. That was one of the most amazing tours and musical experiences in pop of my life.
wow.
This
Well,
guy is Alejandro Sanchez, his name. His music is incredible, and I got to spend. I was 3 months in Spain touring with him,
wow.
doing a full tour of Spain with him, and I mean, yeah, what a country!
You've seen a lot of stuff. You've
Oh
seen a
yeah,
lot of countries, man. I mean,
yeah, man. I've
everywhere
been, I've
with
been, I've been pretty lucky
yeah.
in that sense. Yeah,
And now you've seen probably a lot of different counties in Tennessee. So,
exactly.
so, so, you went to Boston Brass. You know, I've always thought you guys had you guys have always had a nice blend. I mean, uh, talk about some of the guys in the group. I mean, Jeff, like you and Jeff sound like you played together for a long time now. Can you talk about the first
Oh,
time you
we
guys played
have
together? Well, you have, but I mean,
forever.
forever, but when you guys started, even it sounded like you'd played together a long time. Can you remember the first time you guys got together and played? What the audition was like? What did you do for that?
I it was short. It was probably like 10, 15 minutes. And I remember I play a little bit of classical and then we play some jazz and some lead stuff, and then that was it. And what he says, it's that when I came in and I started playing, that it was pretty clear to them that it was a match.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
Jeff has always been a great second trumpet player
yeah,
in the sense that he really listens, he really follows,
yeah.
and he really knows um, how to make you sound better.
Right,
You know,
right,
a second trumpet player in a quintet can make you or destroy you.
right.
Make you or break you.
Well, luckily he's a nice guy, so that helps.
Yeah,
The not destruction part.
yeah. Well, he knows what's better for him too.
Yeah, of course, of course. And so, with Boston Brass, I mean, education's. I'm going to talk about the education component that you guys do because I know that's a huge thing to you. Can you kind of talk about what the mission of the group is when it comes to education? I've talked about this a little bit before,
Hmm.
but how many schools do you guys go to? What's sort of like the mission outside of the concert hall for you guys as a
For
quintet?
for us, the concerts, of course, are important, but for us, the most important thing is to leave a an important uh, 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 gift to the community that we go to.
Yeah, yeah.
In the sense of music education. So it's either a college, a high school, um,
Well, you and
and
I
if
went to a middle school and played some duets when you were here in Atlanta
mhm,
a couple of years back.
yeah, I think it's important to leave a footprint
Yeah,
wherever you go in terms of music education. I think that that we are in a world where we need to create new audiences, and it starts with that. It starts with getting kids excited in band for them to spread the word. You know,
Yeah.
I think that our job with all of this technology and all this stuff that we have, to thank God that there is this, so we don't go crazy during COVID. But our job is to to keep music, live music, relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not going to do that, and then we're not going to do that, Mark, playing Schoenberg only.
But at Schoenberg and Webern.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, unless you explain it really well, you
About the
know.
about 12 tone stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, what or anything that you play for an audience.
Yeah.
If you explain it to the audience, they'll get it and they will enjoy it.
You know,
So
that's, yeah.
yeah, so to me, the fact that and I don't want to I don't want to sound like I'm going to sound, but I'm going to sound like I'm going to sound. I apologize. The fact that symphony orchestra haven't broken up the way they do concerts in order to explain or talk a little bit about the music before it happens so people have a better understanding and a better time is daunting to me.
Yeah.
Why? Because people that go to a classical concert for the first time, I'm not talking about the classical music lover. We don't need to worry about that people.
Right.
I mean, about those people. We need to worry about the people that go to the hall for the first time, and they're more nervous than you are because they don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And if you open up with the latest work from whoever it is, and it's a bunch of, you know, music that we understand, but they don't understand, then the first 10 minutes, we lost them.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we put, let's say, a long piano concerto, because they're not going to put something exciting like a trumpet player playing solo,
Yeah.
you
Absolutely.
know?
Right.
Or orchestras only do violin, cello, and piano. God forbid they have something exciting. Anyway, so if you have a person that's never encountered that, that's it. They're done. By the time you give them the entree of the show, which is hopefully a great symphony that they get excited about, they're gonna be, oh man, that was awesome. But I'm not gonna go back. That
Yeah.
first time was unbearable. But if you talk to them about it and you making part of the story, I'm sure a whole different experience is that what they will have
I think that's totally right. I mean, and I'm. Do you do that? Do you talk about this with your students all the time now?
all the time.
Because don't you
They
feel like,
hate they hate talking before they play. And in trumpet class, if they don't talk, they don't play.
yeah, because don't you feel like audiences go, unless you're like a serious hardcore person in that particular kind of music, you're paying for access to those people on stage just as much as you're paying for the music. Do you agree with
Mhm.
that?
Of course, of course, man. And then we have come to, I don't know how we have come to be this jaded about classical music that is different than any other type of music.
I totally agree because I mean, I don't think Brahms was a saint, right? I mean, he was, you know,
No, man.
he,
And
he
Brahms was hip in his era,
yeah,
you know.
absolutely,
And then Beethoven was a rock star in his era. And
yeah,
Mozart, you know what? He was a crazy dude, but he was a rock star. The talk in the town was what were these guys gonna come up with next
yeah,
in terms of entertainment, plus the other stuff they had, theater, whatever that they had.
yeah,
You know, so I don't know when we did this in classical music, and we sort of alienated that genre from the rest of the population, which is a mistake. So our job is to bring everybody back,
right,
and the best way to do it, I think, is to talk to them about
right,
it.
yeah,
It's not rocket science, man. This is a guy like you and me that wrote this, and he was feeling this and this and blah blah blah. And in next part you're gonna hear this, and next Y part you're gonna hear that, and and
yeah.
people are gonna have a better time.
It's like going to like a baseball game or a soccer game without knowing the rules. It would just be people running around kicking a ball, and you wouldn't come back.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, no, it's
Exactly. That's my opinion. It's like, unfortunately, we are in an era that we have to re-educate.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's right. So when your students play brand etudes, do they talk about the Russian Revolution?
The what? I didn't hear
I
that.
said,
Sorry.
I said, when your students play brand etudes, do they talk about the Russian Revolution?
No, man. I don't. They don't get to that. I stop at the first bar. When they're gonna start about talking, they're like, "No, man, listen." No, thank
Hey
you.
man, this is two people I want you to talk about a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, the first one is uh, is Sam, right? Can you talk about him, how he came into the group, what he meant to the group, what he meant to you personally, what kind of things you learned from him?
Well, I met Sam in 2004. In 2004, and Sam, he came to do sort of like a consulting week when I was in Dallas Brass, and apparently he had heard of me from Gil. So when we met, he said, "Oh man, I've heard of you." I was like, "Oh, you have? Sorry." And of course, Sam, to me, when I met Sam, I was like, "Oh my God, this is the dude that played that tape." It's like,
Right,
oh
from the
man,
class brass recording. Yeah, of course.
yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, you know. And so we hit it off really well, and I asked for him to listen to me. So I went. His parents lived in Coral Gables
Mm-hmm.
in Miami, so I went to his parents' house, and he heard me play, and we started talking, and then we went and we had lunch at his favorite restaurant in Miami, which happened to be one of my favorite restaurants too. So we hit it off really well, you know. We sort of stay in touch a little bit. So then when apparently I don't know this, but what the guy says, when the Boston Brass position came open, he was the one that recommended me
Yeah.
for the job. So I started touring with Boston Brass, and I kept seeing Sam more often. And then we became close, because as you know, Sam was such an amazing person that anytime you were with Sam, he gave you an attention and he make you feel like you were it, man. Like that. I never heard or saw Sam um, putting anybody down, or he was always pushing you forward.
Yeah.
Always giving you support. Um, so when and then Boston Brass has always talked to Sam, you know, for to produce, for advice, for new personnel, so we had this relationship. So he came to Miami. I was hanging out with Gould in Miami, and uh, um, and Sam came, and we were going to dinner. And at this point, Andrew Hitch was gonna quit the band.
Yeah.
So Sam asked that day. He's like, "Hey man, so who are you thinking about getting for the band?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. We're gonna talk to you, man." You he's like, "Talk to me about the band a little bit." So I talked to him like in detail about what the band was, and then so he looks at me and he's like, "Hey man, I want to play," and I started laughing because I thought he was joking,
Yeah.
you know. So he's like, "Hey man," it's like, "I still can play." Like, no, it's not that. I said, it's not that. It's not that, man. That's like, it's like, you want to play in Boston Brass? He's like, what? I said, are you deaf? I was like, oh my God. I said, I said, okay, I, I think, we're done looking for somebody, So he said to me, give me 2 weeks until I get everything lined up and then we can let people know.
Wow.
And and of course, you know, I got in the car and I called Jeff, like, "Hey man, are you sitting down?" "Yeah, why?" It's like, "You know who wants to play in the band?" He's like, "No." I said, "Sam." It's like, "Sam who?" I'm like, "What do you mean Sam who?" "Sam Pelafian, man." And it was silence. I mean, there was silence for about half of a minute.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Hey man, are you there?" And he did it. All he could say was like, "Cool." That's all he could say. He was in like he was in such a shock. You know, they was like, "Cool." Um, yeah, yeah.
What so once he got in the group, what were the things that you noticed with the group?
Well, first of all, Sam was he was a force of nature. Oh, he was a force of nature. Oh, okay. Hey man, it's good to see you, dude. Ludling, thank you so much. I think I'm gonna leave.
There, we got a guest.
Hello, Mr. Sachs.
My friend, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I just have one question for you.
Uh-oh.
With this, the wrist thing with the Yamaha, do they pay you every time you raise your hand, like show it, man? Did they like give you like a certain? Did they like every time you like do that? They like pay you? It's like boom. It's like ding. Yeah.
That's how he affords all that equipment.
So good to see you.
It's great to see you, brother.
So
Man,
awesome
the
to
only
see
thing
you.
that bums me is that like you talk about Ricky Martin, man. I want you play She Bangs, man. Come on.
I only play it if you dance to it.
You got it. Bring it. Bring it, man. Let's go. Let's go. My wife's downstairs. She'll never know. And, she'll see this later and be horrified. But,
There'll be a lot of hits on this video once that happens.
It's so good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by.
no, of course, man. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to miss this.
Jose, what's on your
It's great
stand?
Huh?
Jose, what's on your stand?
Yeah, it's scary enough, man.
Hey, I like to keep my friends close and my enemies closer.
We were just talking, it's a good time that you came in, Michael. We were just talking about Sam Palafian a little bit and kind of the changes he made to the Boston Brass and what that influence was like. But you and Sam went back a long way. Why don't you talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah, look, Sam is the reason that I met Mark Gould. I mean, he's really one of the big reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing now. I mean, Sam was a force of nature, man. And then, you know, he was always just supercharged positivity. Anytime I saw him, anytime he was like super supportive and just like, yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing. Sounds great. Just always super supportive. I mean, from the time I met him when I was 19, he hooked me up with Gould, to other times when I saw that, Empire Brass play. I actually got to play with him at Tim Morrison's wedding. This would have been in 1985 up in Maine. I ended up playing. Rolf wasn't there, and Tim was getting married, so it was me and Phil Snedeker played with the other remaining Empire guys. So I got to play with Sam, back then, which was just incredible. And then, over the years, I kept seeing him. We kept running into each other, and then we did some projects together. Gould and Sam put together this Sousa Band record I did, this Joplin ragtime CD they made that was phenomenal. And then, over the last couple of years, with Jose, and we got together. I run this festival out in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, so I was able to get the Boston Brass guys up a couple times. I was able to get Gould up and conduct, and Jose playing and Palafian playing, and
Oh.
It looks like things are going to get a little interesting here.
And
so they are.
My friend, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's a familiar room. I noticed that room, and I'm very familiar with that room that you're in.
That's right.
So I've been listening to you, you know. But
And
you know, I got a question for you. I didn't get the name of that guy. This guy Sanchez. What was his name? The guy you went on tour with to Spain. What was his name?
Alejandro Sanz.
Sans.
Sanz.
Sans.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. That's good. I mean, that's really all I wanted to say. Okay, I'll see you, man. Good luck.
No, man. Hey, man. No, man. Where are you going, man? You kidding me?
Well, I just want some information out of you. You know, I mean,
How you doing?
it was interesting to hear about your career. You know, you
You
try
know,
to remember that you were in Dallas Brass. You don't remember that well, huh?
no, I don't.
You know, it's just like you started to stumble at that part.
What?
A year and a half. I mean, who cares, right?
No. It's parts of your life that you don't remember. I'm sure you have those. So, Mike, go ahead.
No. I defer to my guru and master teacher, Mr. Gould here.
Were you talking about Sam Palafian just now?
That's right.
Yeah,
Please,
yeah.
please.
Well, I remember, like, I looked at Sam. We were down in Miami, right? We were out to dinner, and I knew that there's an opening in Boston Brass. I said, well, Sam wants to get back on the road. Period. Sam is the ultimate road rat. He was a road rat till the day he died. That's true, right?
Hmm.
He loved being on the road.
Yeah,
He was very creative on the road.
yeah.
He wrote a lot of music. And now in the advent of the cell phone, oh my goodness.
It was incredible to see him when he started in the group. He was like a little kid again. All these projects, he would be hanging out with me until the wee hours of the night. Everybody would be gone and we would be hanging out. It was, it was awesome to see that. And then to see that his passion for music was intact.
Yeah,
It was just so gigantic to see that. And then you saw that all the time with him because you did so many projects.
yeah. Oh yeah. Sam Palafian. No, I remember when I first heard him. It was like in 1972, maybe 73. He came down and played at the New York Brass Conference. That was the thing that happened every year for many, many years. You're too young to remember that. Maybe Sax remembers it.
Yeah, I remember those, man. Oh, yeah.
It's a New York Brass Conference. It was like maybe one of the first one, and he came down with Gunther Schuller and played in Schuller's ragtime band. And I heard this tuba player. I said, "Who is this guy? Who's this guy? Man, he looks like he's right out of like the time of Jesus Christ himself. Like Middle Eastern looking dude. Some, and he always had that thing. That sort of wide stance. You know what I mean? The way he just, he sort of had that gait, and he had his chest out,
That Miami thing.
Well, it could be. It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
Were you ever at that house, at his house in Miami?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a prime real estate, man.
Uh-huh.
It was in the heart of Coral Gables.
That's right.
And in the best avenue of Coral Gables. That place was awesome. Yeah. And then it's funny because we for those that just tuned in when Sax was talking about his festival, I've had the honor of playing there with him, be with Mark. But we're never with Mark and Sam together, right? At the festival.
No, unfortunately not. No.
Yeah.
No, but the one time we were there doing a ragtime show, it was wild because Laura Schissel, who's the Library of Congress, I think he's the executor of Gunther's music from his estate. So he brought all that music from Gunther's estate for this ragtime show. And all of a sudden from behind me I hear Sam, he's like, oh shit, man, this is my writing from 1972, man. And he like holds up the part, Loris, man, and check it. It's like it's my writing from 45 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was crazy, man.
that's
No,
pretty
but
sweet.
Sam, but I mean, Gould, you could talk about this. Just hearing him back then. I mean, when I first heard him in 1981 in Empire Brass, doing Bame Sextet, they were reading it with Katala, and they were just reading like the first movement or something for a bunch of guys, and he would play, and it was like, what is that, man? It's like, holy shit, Jesus. I mean, I'd never heard a tuba player who could play. I mean, he transcended the tuba. He could do so many things that were just, he could play higher, he could play lower, he can play louder, he could play softer, he could play faster, slower. I mean, the whole thing, when he would play like super low and you hear like the hertz, like in the sound, it's like, who are you, man? He's some freaking alien. I mean, and then his whole demeanor, like you said, I mean, he was, I mean, when he passed away, man, the first thing you texted me, Mark, was you said a hurricane has passed.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, that was him, man. And I mean, the two of you guys together, man, were like nitro and glycerin, man. It was.
That's right. We did that band record. We did a couple of those band records.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Did you do all of those records? You did.
Yeah, of course, man.
You did. I don't know if you did the circus records.
No, I didn't do the circus record, but I did.
You
I did the other two.
Yeah, with Sam. Oh yeah, he's the best, So.
It's funny when Sam, the first thing that Sam did with the band is he came to Costa Rica. He came to Costa Rica and we played with the orchestra down there and we gave a recital, and it was just amazing. I mean, when the first rehearsal, man, I remember telling Domingo, because it was Domingo's first tour too. So I said to Domingo, man, and he was not, at that time we didn't know he was going to stay in the band. He just came in to sub for hits. And I just, Domingo and I were just like, oh my God, dude, what is this? Because he was just a different level, So when I told the guys that he wanted to join the band, the first thing I said, guys, it's time to practice. I mean, we can't have the old man show us off, man. Come on. We got to practice, Even then, it was just amazing, spectacular, in every sense of the word. And then such a teacher. Such a teacher, man. Such an educator.
I would have liked to have been at some of those early Boston brass rehearsals with Sam. I would have laughed. I knew exactly what would have happened. What was going to come. Exactly. Where he would say, "Oh." But see, he's very smart because he always makes good friends with the first trumpet player. That's just natural tuba logic. You have to make friends with the guy on the bottom, and then you can control things pretty well. You got it covered. Then everybody's in the middle. You got them. What do you think of that, Michael? Is that true? You think?
Yeah, I can roll with that, man. I got Yasu now, man. Who I'm delighted to be rolling with him.
Right, you can lock it in there.
Yeah, and other guys. I mean, look. I mean, before that, I did a bunch of stuff with Dave Kirk when I was in Houston, who's fantastic, and plenty of other guys. But those are the two guys I work with. And of course Ron Bishop. But yeah, to have a guy on the bottom that you can who's just an anchor like that you just that's there done. Makes everyone's life easier if those two voices are locked in, especially in a quintet. Eh?
The old days of Sam and the Empire Brass Quintet. So I knew him like all those years. We were pretty close friends. All the years of the Empire, all the heyday of the Empire. Now with Ralph Schmedvig, after he left Empire, he had to go through a decompression number of years there. I think he had to decompress. It was funny because Ralph would always say stuff to Sam like, Sam, you play the fucking tuba, that kind of stuff. trumpet stuff. Just smash it on Sam. I mean, I thought it was very funny. Because that was very funny.
I know you don't take compliments well, but some of the most epic musical moments I've had is when you have been around, when Sam's been around, and when you have been around. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's
So,
been pretty
Mark
awesome.
Doolin, where have you been? Where you hide out there? Are you in Indiana? Where are you, Mark?
I'm in Atlanta. I've been here for about 3 years almost.
Okay, I heard that there was like a migration in the covered wagon. You moved from somewhere.
I moved from like Ohio, and then I stopped in North Carolina for a little bit, and I moved down here, and so just like teaching and playing. Well, just right, nobody's playing right now, so you know
But
that's
it
what
looks
we're.
like, I mean, I'm looking at your room. It looks like it's neat, it's organized. Like you're not in a massive depression, or like a total alcoholic. Like falling down. That's good. So you do.
No, yeah, I'm doing all right. I mean, the alcoholism kicks in later.
I see.
It's too early for that.
It's too early. Hey, Mark, the first time I heard you do a master class was in like 1990 something, but I feel like you had been playing with Empire. Like you'd done a tour with them. Is that right? Am I remembering that correct?
Yes. I did a tour of Empire.
Can you talk about that? Because the first thing I remember you saying in the class was like, I was like really young and excited. And it was this really dark, like, how are we ever going to have an audience, but you were talking about playing Empire, like the age of the audience, and all that stuff. Because Jose was talking a little bit ago about the audience having some access, to us and as players, and I'm sure you agree with that.
Yeah, I heard what he was saying about the death of classical music. And
Hey, I didn't say that.
well, I mean, you didn't say it in so many words because you like to couch things, euphemistically. I mean, but that's essentially what you were saying.
Hey man, don't be fake news, man.
But I think and Michael and Michael and I have been talking about this about this is sort of a pivot point. I was talking to McWhorter about it, Brian McWhorter, that this is a pivot point now. The pandemic, it's going to be real changes are going to come after this thing is over. I mean, I can feel it. I'm not sure exactly what is going to happen, but there's going to be a pivot, and I'm not sure how that works, or where the money is going to come from, or what, no one really has figured that out yet. How do you like re-employ? Let's say it's, concerts are down for another year, like they are at the opera. Down for another year. Like, what do these organizations do? That's like a pretty big hit for them, I think. And I'm not sure how that all works out. It's like there's so many unknowns. But I think that the number of musicians will diminish, professional musicians. I mean, I don't see where the revenue stream is anymore. I can't see it. I don't understand where it comes from. Is it going to be, there used to be jobs teaching, and that sort of thing. I'm not sure. I mean, that'll still go on because people still want to play, but I'm not sure how it will manifest itself. I don't know what Michael thinks about that.
No, I mean no, I do agree. I feel like right now I think it's both a pivot point, and I also think it's a time of opportunity. And I mean, there's a number of different aspects to this. I mean, you have the big orchestras and opera companies with hundreds of people, and that's kind of at the top of the food chain as far as masses of people. And then orchestras, and smaller orchestras, and chamber groups, and stuff, stuff like you guys are doing in Boston Brass. And if anything, to me, guys like Boston Brass, because of the flexibility and that you cover so many different genres, and you do a lot in education, you get your fingers in a lot of pies, you can be a lot more flexible and nimble. I think the larger the organization, the more difficult it's like, it's like, you know, you're basically swinging around a PT boat while, you know, I'm trying to swing around an aircraft carrier with the orchestra. You know, it's like the nimbleness that you guys can kind of stick and move and maybe try some different things and maybe take a few more risks and go into some different arenas different ways.
Yeah, I think
But
you're
I
right about that. You know, like, what's the biggest dinosaur? The Brontosaurus got stuck in the mud. It's like the Met. They're the biggest one, so it's like just so incredibly cumbersome to get it back on that dinosaur back on the road. You know.
True, but still, it's also a time of huge opportunity for them to take a step back and look at the paradigm and say, all right, this has worked since basically since World War II, pretty much. I mean, well, 1960, call it. So the last, you know, 60 years, you've had a particular paradigm that's been pretty much the same paradigm. Once orchestras by the mid late 60s were all 52 weeks, so I could call 50 years, right? The last 50 years it's got to swing into a different mode. Does that mode end up being more technologically oriented? Does that mode end up being more live oriented along with some technology? Does the concert space change? Like, you know, what Jose, what you were saying is like the way you bring audiences in, the way you interact with audiences, that it's much more of an integrated sort of more of an intimate sort of a sense. And how do you do more concerts to smaller audiences? Do you do shorter concerts to more audiences? Do you do different types of different venues? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go. But I mean, I'm curious, Jose, like where you guys are thinking, because to me, you guys can, in a lot of ways, light the way, and it could be smaller venues, and because those are the guys who, to me, are on the edge. Is like some of the smaller venues for music. Is they're on the edge of like, do they survive this time or not? But I mean, what are you guys thinking about?
I think that I mean for us now in October we're gonna go and do this we're gonna do a concert for presenters and their presentees or the people that are affiliated to their concert series, and that's gonna be live stream. That's one of the things that we're doing, and because we're five, it's a lot easier to do. We're gonna do it in Michigan, you know, and we're going to do it at a theater. So we're going to start exploring things like this. Of course, we want to get back as much as we can to normalcy, which is going to a place, give a master class to the kids, give a concert, um, and travel. But I think that more and more we're going to have to start like having a different chapter within the organization that has to do with this type of stuff, you know, with streaming things. We're trying to get to people that way until you can get more than 400, 500 people into a hall, you
I
know.
think if you have now, then the expectation about video presentation, um, the audience of any video presentation is very sophisticated, you know, at all levels. So the way that it looks and the way that it's presented and the way that it's shot, I mean, then you get into, you know, you get into some production things.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you have to make a production company.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be wanted to produce TV shows. That's what you're talking about. You might have the flexibility to do that.
And something that it sounds crazy, but it could be something to explore. Um, to start to get into sort of like a reality TV show
Mm-hmm.
while the concert experience happens.
You sure you'd like to do that with Boston Grass? I don't
Not
know
really,
about that.
especially
What
not
I
when
know
you're
about
around.
you guys.
Actually, you know what? If you're around, I'll go viral. I mean, I don't think I'll ever work again, but it'll go viral. It'll be worth it.
Yeah,
I
I'd like to
probably
see.
won't need to.
I'd like to see put you guys in a house and then start filming. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Let's film the rehearsals, man. See
Actually, we could charge money for that.
yeah, let's film the rehearsals.
That kind of happened a little bit in Steamboat with the two of you guys and Domingo. By the way, Domingo says
Domingo says hi. Yeah,
he can't write on Facebook any comments on Facebook. He sends
it's
big
probably,
hugs to everybody.
it's
But
probably
man,
it's probably best he can't write.
I don't know. I want to hear what Domingo, man. I love Domingo, man. He's the best.
Hey, I have a question
Love,
for you
man.
guys though, because you're talking about all this video stuff. Where do you think the line blurs between paying for content and how much free stuff is out there? Like, at what point is exposure nice, and then at what point does it go so far that people just don't want to pay for anything?
That's a good question.
That's a $64,000 question, young man.
More
That's
like,
it. That's different
more
than
like
the
70.
$750 question, though. But go ahead.
But that's the big question, because there's so much free stuff. So I don't know how it monetizes. I mean, are you selling tickets for your show now, Jose?
What they're doing is the presenters are buying into the show, and the presenters are the ones that are going to give or sell or whatever they decide to do with this link.
So they're the ones who pay you. You sell it to the presenters.
Mhm.
Well, that might be a model. If they can they make any money?
I don't know.
Well, it
We'll
depends what
see.
audience they're. I mean, a lot of it's going to be data driven. So a lot of this is pairing up. I mean, basically creating a production company, and then getting these like data mining companies to drill down and find out who is your chief demographic, and then what kind of products, where are they shopping, what are they looking for, and then start to team up with sponsors driven by the data that you find out. And I mean, that I think that's going to end up being a lot of it is somebody who can kind of harvest the data and understand what that is and be able to kind of stick and move quickly to be able to find that niche market. Because as you said, there's so much, just a tsunami of videos now out there. How do you differentiate yourself to tell a unique enough story that's going to bring people to you rather than the 500 other quintets that are out there or
Exactly.
other orchestras? How do you make your thing compelling?
Mhm.
And like you say, like almost like an ongoing reality TV show, or how do you make it an ongoing like series where you become the characters in the series that people become interested in?
I think we are seeing that already with people on social media.
Mhm.
You know, with people that live in social media. I mean, I don't like to be on social media, to tell you the truth, but I do it because I have to do it. You have to do it.
Mm.
It's part of it. It's part of it. It's how So I think that depending on what your message is and the people that you target, you could have actually a different whole experience that is not called a concert anymore. The concert is part of that experience or the main part of that experience. Does that make sense? And you have like a whole reality thing that happens within that whole experience. So which I think in a way is good for classical music, because there has been a divorce between classical music and technology and popularity for a while. So I think if classical music and technology converge together, and they can complement each other really well. So it's going to be great for big institutions. So they were going to become a lot more global. Because if an institution like the Cleveland Orchestra already has a worldwide audience, imagine what happens if they put some effort into being more present online.
Yeah, but the thing is, and you know, you know, Mark is right, man. I mean, the artists are the product, and the artists are the ones that have to be driving it in some way. I mean, the thing with your situation, Jose, is that you guys have quality control and complete creative control.
Mm-hmm.
For us, maybe we have some input, maybe we don't, but you hope that the creative control or whoever's making the decisions is going to set it up with the right first. I mean, you got to get the right team, you've got to get the right look, you've got to have a whole thing and the whole story, the whole way you do it. It's
I,
that's
I think it will also take a lot of changing the culture of the thought, the thinking process and the culture of the management in orchestra.
it's got to become a joint venture. I mean, there's no
Exactly.
question about it. you can't do this without the musician buy-in, and you won't have the musician buy-in if the musicians don't have a voice at the table, and it's a joint venture, and that's going to be very, very hard for a lot of orchestras to get to, because I mean, over my look, over my career, I've seen it ebb and flow. There have been times when there's been an extreme joint venture. There's been times when I've seen a complete chasm between the parties, between staff and musicians. And it becomes about the institution rather than the orchestra. And it gets into those kind of semantics. But, and then, I mean, besides just the orchestras, I mean, we're going to be in great shape because comparatively, but I mean, the guys who are the freelance musicians, the guys who, don't have, an organization that they're tied to where they have tenure, where they have,
Mm-hmm.
an ability to have a 403B and a retirement from where they don't have a pension, they don't have a pension, they don't have, medical insurance tied to an organization. Those are the guys that I worry about that, this current climate is horrible. I mean, these guys in New York who do all these shows and do all this great stuff, all of a sudden, poof. Those are the guys that I worry about. I mean, I've talked to a number of guys already who are talking to me like, yeah, go back and get an MBA and go do some other stuff. Or, we're going to lose a lot of incredible talent, which would really be a shame to lose that kind of innovation, creativity that's still possible from some of these people.
Well, and the other issue with this pandemic too is going to be the education component, right? Because we were talking about that a minute ago. If you have this go on for another year, and in these schools, you've had music cut out of the schools because how can you really teach that class? Or it turns out to not be as essential as something else. There's a gap there, and it can look dispensable to some of those administrators who decide where the money goes. So
Sorry, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just going to say, don't you think that's going to become part of the model too? It's no longer about just playing concerts. It's got to be like an ally to those people who are trying to teach that stuff in the schools. Otherwise, if it gets wiped out, more than it already has.
And that's got to go back to like elementary teaching. I mean, you little kids, because to me, the whole thing's got to be a pipeline. Little kids get exposed to it and get drawn to it, and then they're supported all the way through. And not to become a musician, but I want people to just appreciate it. Exactly.
Well, I remember when I first went to school, started elementary school, we learned solfeggio in the second grade. We learned solfeggio. We did solfeggio exercises.
That's awesome.
That was part of a traditional curriculum, in 1950, whatever. We did that, and then we learned on little tonettes. We had that. Then maybe you could get in the band, So it was like, and then everyone sang in chorus, and we sang in music class. That's all we did. We almost sang the whole time.
It's amazing, man.
Well, we're us listen to music. We listen to records, some of the music teachers. Some of the kids didn't like the records, but they put on records,
Well, that's a whole nother subset of all this topic.
Well, is the level of just basic. If everyone's going slow enough to be able to ingest information at a young age, but they're ingesting different information, which is far more interesting. Video games are far more interesting than doing solfeggio. Playing World of Warcraft, when you're 12 years old. I mean, that's like endlessly fascinating. And the number of gamers throughout the world at that age, I mean, it's legion, yes, billions. So,
plus just access to music. You have so many different outlets of music and games and activities. I mean, it used to be that you had, there would be TV shows on that, like or music that everybody was kind of centralized, that everybody was listening to the same music, watching the same TV shows. So there was kind of a common ground of experience. Whereas now the way people were listening, there's none of that common ground of experience.
Well, and there's also an ocean of music. It's like now an ocean, tidal waves hit every day, a new tidal wave of music, of stuff of every kind, from any recorded music in the history of recorded music is now readily available to everyone with an internet connection. for nothing, for free. That's to your point, Mark. So this becomes like a very difficult. It's like a very difficult subject. How the most creative people start making things. So, and
Well,
where
don't you?
will they like to congregate, and how will they like to take in music and art? How will they like to do that? What is their preferred form? They like Broadway shows. People will go to those. If like they have a touring show all over, they get very good audiences for a road production of some Broadway show, don't they? They go to small towns and they make money. People go. They do a run for a few days, a couple of days. There's like certain entertainments, as you say, somebody streamlined.
I think that's important, Mark. I think that the whole component of the concert is going to change, and it has to go with video because the newer generation, they don't listen to music anymore. That's us. Most of the time, the newer generation, what they do, they go to YouTube and they rather watch a video with music than focus on music only.
Yeah, but you could do a live show with music that could be simple, that still could be very effective theatrically, and just the way it is.
If you
But
have a,
yeah,
if you have a, if you have a producer that understands the music and gives an experience through the concert of teaching people music through images, or like if you have somebody talking to the audience before the piece, this and this, such and such is going to happen, blah 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 blah, and then the person behind the cameras is doing that and showing that to the audience, you know that could be a way of trying to get more people interested in something, at the same time of teaching. What I was talking to Mark about earlier is that that we are right now, we had a generation of audiences that were more keen to the music that is presented by classical musicians. Now the younger the generation is, if you're not in certain household, there's going to be a bigger gap. How do we integrate those people back into that scene of bringing classical music to them, or live music period?
Well, do you think it's part of an issue though too that like there was sort of a when the MP3 took over for CDs and records, right? Before that, the record companies decided who was good, what was quality, you know? And so if you went to a record store or a CD store and you went to a certain rack, you knew that what you were getting had been vetted, it had been gone through, and it was probably good. And now there's so much garbage out there, it kind of pollutes the product on top of that. I mean, that's another layer of how do you swim through that sea of garbage to find the real stuff, and does it become stuff that's substance, or does it become stuff that's just has the production value to make you think it's good?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, on one hand, yeah, a lot of garbage has kind of seeped out. But on the other hand, it's also given an avenue for a lot of things for creative people who wouldn't have normally had access to or that avenue to be able to. But it creates a thing where, my daughter's telling me all these names of, TikTok influencers who have millions and millions of followers. And it's all complete BS. So, there's that part of it too. So it's like, how do you find the niche that we can somehow create this arena where we can gather people, and we're going to draw people? And, it's, I don't know. I mean, Mark,
the
you and I have
Street
talked a lot
Music
about
Festival is a good place. The audience enjoys coming to the concerts. It's a nice place to go. The concerts are nice and they're not too long. It's like a good length. They like coming out. They like hearing little music. So it's easy to park.
You try to make it fun. I mean, in that situation, I'm just looking at my audience and thinking, where's the Venn diagram overlap of creating some great music and giving people, an entertaining event for them to come to, leave with a smile on their face. come anticipating that something good's going to happen. They're going to have fun. They're going to be entertained. They're going to see people on stage who are having a good time, collaborating, creating this collective energy that becomes this kind of, you know, cyclical kind of thing with the audience.
Right.
And, that's what I've tried to tap into there. And to me, that's proven very successful in that realm. And I kind of feel like some places do that to varying degrees, and some artists do that to varying degrees as well. But it can't be one-dimensional kind of a presentation. It's got to be multi-layered, three-dimensional, appealing to a wide range of people.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it will take a lot from us too. That we have to be okay with things as musicians. Meaning, we're gonna have to start bending our own rules about certain things. In order to make this thing work. It's like if I am backstage warming up for something, and somebody from the production team comes in and they're doing a let's say they're doing a live stream, and they want to talk to me, I should talk to them, because I totally see some people going like, man, I'm warming up, man, or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not talking about you, Mike. I know it.
No, I know where Gould's about to go.
Because I see that green in Mr. Gould. In Mr. Gould, I see the green on his face. We know.
No, I would talk.
I know you
I
would.
would surprise you, Gould. I would surprise you. I would stop my warm up and I would
I
talk.
haven't said anything. I don't understand what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, right.
But like that, or like on a regular basis, when you have one night of the week with the orchestra, and you have this type of presentation.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the musicians coming in, you talk to the musicians, you talk to members of the audience. The conductor gives a little 5-minute thing about the concert. People see a more realistic part of something like an orchestra. And then what I'm saying, the people are going to have to be flexible, because unions have a bunch of rules and things like that sometimes they'll have to change for things like this in order to keep live music happening out there, man. I don't know. It's just an idea, but who knows? What do you think, Mr. Gould? I see you over there.
Well, I'm typing to Sarah. Who is Sarah? Who is she?
Sarah is here in the conversation, right here.
Sarah is a horn and trumpet player in town here.
She's not moving. I see her picture.
Sarah, you want to come on?
I'm not sure whether she's smiling or grimacing. I don't know.
All right, I don't think
I'll leave it up to her, whatever she wants to do. But I had a really profound point. Oh, I know. I was going to ask you, Mark. You don't have to go into it too much if you don't want to, but like the thing with the Met right now, just completely going dark. Do you think that's a blown opportunity? I mean, there's got to be some things they can be doing to stay relevant. Do you think so?
Well, it's such a huge dinosaur. They have to gather so many forces in order to get the thing up and running. So now when you have lack of travel in a pandemic and there's no performances, there's no way to do anything, and you have to plan so far in advance just to get the engine started. I mean, I don't think they had a choice. They had no alternative. And their payroll is so gigantic. They could do nothing else. Everybody, you can play, the symphony orchestra, they could make it so they can reach more people. I don't really believe that anymore. I think what Sarah is typing, I think that's actually much more relevant. It's like music will become a much more amateur endeavor. And I'm talking amateur in the best sense of the word, loving what you're doing. In that sense, and there's no revenue stream that I can see that's appearing from musicians. Everything is controlled by very large platforms, Spotify, YouTube, etc., etc. So this model is very, very difficult. And then to get anyone to leave the house, that's another story. that's not anybody to leave the house for any reason. You know, I mean, that's tough. That's a tough one. It's a tough thing. So when Sarah writes about amateur musicians or people who aren't full-time employed, if you could get something going in your community where you're playing for, you know, 100 people or your friends, that would seem like a nice opportunity. They used to do that, the town band. You were in the town band. I was in the town band. So
And isn't that what kind of fueled the growth of the professional musician as well?
no, the professional musician, the number of people in the local 802 in New York now is probably 1/20th of what it was in 1948.
Wow.
But what I'm saying is before then you had a lot of amateur stuff in the home. You had people playing piano in a house, or you had
Yeah.
town bands and stuff, and that kind of drove it, right?
Well, it was like there was also a shared listening and culture. I mean, from where you were. I mean, there wasn't so many kinds of music. Jose was talking about that. He never heard of certain music, like where he was from. He never heard of any of that stuff. Never came across his radar. But there were just fewer kinds of music. And also that the 19th century aesthetic with music was still very, very strong. So popular songs were, sounded more like Puccini than Queen does, It's like a whole different way, or Bon Iver, or Sufjan Stevens, or some of these, indie pop. It's like the aesthetic is different. But that interests me. I mean, I enjoy, hearing like, what's going on. It's like I landed on another planet, trying to figure it out. And it's also the production values are so splendidly executed in a lot of really high level pop music. That's very impressive to me. How that's used. Classical music could take some lessons from that for certain. For certain.
Certain
How
thing,
it
yeah.
is transmitted. How the music is transmitted, whether that be over a speaker or how it's some things, how the sound is presented. You know,
Well,
Well, you can even take it a step further. You can even get into like AR, VR kind of stuff as well. I mean, that to me is a whole nother level of potential concert experience, both online and in person.
yeah,
I mean, there's a whole layer of things that you can get into that,
But
it's probably going to come online in the next 5 to 7 years.
yeah.
I,
You
I
can walk into the brass section,
Yeah.
during a piece, yeah, and have them play in your face.
Or you can like inhabit somebody's like chair and like see what it is and
Yeah,
experience the piece from inside.
that's actually awesome. And when Mark said about pop music is very important. It's very important, not only in the sense of production, but in the sense of how to distribute this music. Who
well,
works who works where and what department, what is it that they do in order to distribute the music worldwide the way they do, because it's super efficient,
well,
you know.
and don't you think part of it too? I mean, in the what it was in the '60s. I mean, Leonard Bernstein was on TV educating the American public in on TV, like prime time. Am I right about this, Mark? I mean, you remember that probably.
yeah, I remember those. Sure.
And I mean, there's nothing like that now, unless you have like a Dudamel getting a special, or is on some other network doing some little thing. I mean, Tilson Thomas has done that a little bit, but there hasn't been any figure like that.
No, and that's going to be even less so because here you have um, this white guy talking about white people's music written by old white men to this audience, which is National Orange, which was very, very different. Now the cultural palette is much, much broader, and people are interested in many, many other sorts of things. So the competition for that is just for the space is great. How what people would like to learn culturally, and it's sort of terrifying. What they want to learn is a reality show.
Mhm.
Boston Brass. Housewives of freaking wherever you are, Jose. Jose. This Costa Rican. Goes to Vanderbilt University. You know what I mean? Right. And his
I,
trials and
I,
tribulations.
listen, I think that the most views we would get if you are in the show, for sure.
Yeah. Uh huh.
I'm serious, a
Oh
hundred
yeah.
percent serious,
Oh
man.
yeah. Right. Have Grandpa walking around the house. You
It's
stupid.
not. It's the brain. It's the
Uh-huh.
brain.
Uh-huh.
Hey guys, I'm living on West Coast time, and it's about dinner time for me. So I'm gonna sneak out here.
All right, man.
Well,
Hey,
thank
Mark,
my,
thank for having me on. I hope I didn't talk too much.
Mark. I'm hoping that you'll do one. I mean, everything I've been doing is just preparing to ask you to do this sometime.
Of course, man. I would love to do it. I could talk about this book I'm writing on the trumpet. And since you're such a total trumpet geek, you're maybe a Hall of Fame trumpet geek.
Am I Hall of Fame trumpet geek?
You're vying for a spot in there.
Man,
You know
is
about equipment. You know about trumpets. You know about mouthpieces. You know every single trumpet player. You know It's like you have your Hall of Fame of trumpet players. It's like you're a sportscaster, total nerd of the trumpet. So you might enjoy my book.
oh, this the what's the name? This is the one you've already written, or you got another one coming up?
Well, I'm editing. I'm going through the next edit. So I'm working on it.
Maybe if I could get Pandolfi in here at some point at the same time.
Now we're trying to get him to to deal with Zoom and the internet. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
We'd have to go up there. We've been talking to him about it. And Pete Bond has been trying to get him hooked up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, man. Anytime,
Have
I'm
you
happy for you to come in.
have you made any progress with him?
No, I mean, I don't think he's going to do it. He's still hiding out. I'll call him. I'll be on the road tomorrow, so I'll give him a shout. See what
Okay.
he's doing.
Call him and tell him about this chat. It was really big and natural to have all of you on here tonight.
Well, that's nice. It was fun. Just to hang to see everybody is always nice.
Yeah, Jose, much love, brother, always.
Much love, man. Thank you
Sarah,
for stopping by.
I don't know if you're there. Can she hear any of this?
Yeah, Sarah should be able to hear this. Yeah.
But she's is she very shy? Is she neurotic?
Sarah,
horn player?
Sarah, are you
No,
shy?
I'm here.
I gotta
No.
sneak out.
No, I'm a trumpet player. What do
Bye.
you think?
Bye, Mike.
You're a trumpet player.
All right, much love. Much
All
love,
right,
Gould.
man.
All right, Michael.
All right, take care, guys.
Yeah. You can't be shy and be a trumpet player, Mark.
That's true. It's true. I've heard that before.
No, I make money playing horn. I play trumpet for fun.
I see. You're a double. That's an interesting double.
It is, isn't it?
It is. You know who does it is C.J. Camarera. He plays with Paul Simon.
Really?
He was just, C.J.?
No, I don't.
Well, C.J. And he plays trumpet mainly, and then covers the French horn.
Cool.
But you know what I mean. There's a couple of guys. This guy, what's his name? David Gourier. Now this dude, he's like wins contests on the trumpet.
Wow.
National contest, and then he decided to play horn, and we became first horn in the Swiss Romand.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
It is. It's difficult to do, to switch back and forth. I'll tell you that, but it's a lot of fun. I got called to do the horn stuff in the Stan Kenton Cuban Fire Suite, and I'm like, this is great, but I want to play the fun stuff in the trumpet section. So a year later, now I do.
Then you'd have to play with Jose. That's not easy,
I know that wouldn't be.
You got to keep up with that. All right, listen, I'm taking your time.
Hey, Mark, you're doing fine.
Meeting you, Sarah. Mark, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Jose,
Thanks, Mark.
Awesome.
Love you.
It's a pleasure, man.
Love you, man.
Later.
Thanks. See you, Mark.
Gee,
Sarah, thank you so much.
thank you. You're
Yeah.
always an inspiration.
You're too kind.
I'm going to have to get your guy, when we can get back in the schools, I'm going to have to get you and your group out here to get in some of these schools that I'm involved with, because
And anytime, we love
you
that.
guys are amazing.
We love that. We love
I
that.
guess
And then
it's fairly clear.
Yamaha always supports that too. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well
No,
played.
no, about that.
Love that.
I'm not knocking down Mike Sachs.
No. Yeah, but I saw who you waited to leave before you said that.
Of course. I'm not gonna disrespect the man when he's here. He's
Absolutely. You'll
the
do
man
it.
himself.
I know, but yeah, I'd love to have you guys. I've got to
Great.
work with some people out here and see when they're ever going to let us get back in the schools.
It would be fantastic. I hear. Oh my God, I feel bad because somebody say if I am allowed to ask a question.
Yeah, answer that guy's question. That was a good one.
Yeah.
He said, what was the biggest challenge as a college trumpet professor in the U.S.?" I don't know if that was for me or for Mark. Or...
It was for you. That was a while back. I couldn't quite work it in with where we were, but
Oh, okay. It's that to close that gap. To close that gap between old school and new school, between old school of thinking and new school of thinking about technology, about all of that. How, I need to think in these guys' language. How they see music, how they uh, um ingest music, the way they think about music. Now it's related to video. It's related to a lot of things that I didn't have a grasp on. In the pandemic, I published so many videos because I wanted to learn about how to edit video in order for me to be able to talk to the kids about this and not be so obsolete about what's coming with this new generation of people. All they do is on social media. Everything they grew up with it.
yeah.
It's not like us. For us, it's a choice. It's like we have to do it. These guys don't know anything about that. That's how they talk to the world, talk to each other.
Yeah. Well, it's very different. I mean, if your teacher tells you when you're a college student, when you're our age, to go listen to something, you go do it. And you would listen to it a lot. And with these guys, it's like, oh, I listened to it once. Who did you listen to? I don't know. It's very different, situation. You have to be more specific and stuff. It's like listening to these CDs that I have of yours, by the way. I did want to plug these in case anybody wants to see them. This is the first one. That's why I was blowing the dust off. No, there's just kidding. There's the first one, right?
You know what? Well, you know why I'm so bummed out on that picture?
Why?
Because it's a solo CD. Nobody wanted to play with me.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
And then there's and then this one, and everybody wanted to play with you.
Yeah, because I took the picture in Miami, and then Sam was in the project. That's why.
That's true. And I didn't realize like a little bit of a purple tint, which when I made your poster, it had the purple behind it.
Yeah, man.
I didn't even think about it. But those are great CDs if people want them. I'm sure they can get them on your website, which is
Well, I don't sell them on the website, but they can get them. They can, they're on Amazon or iTunes or.
yeah.
Thank you for that. I keep forgetting I have CDs.
And I wanted to bring this up while those guys were on, but it didn't really come up. And I mean, we'll end on a positive note, but the other person I wanted to talk to you about was Ryan Anthony, because it's been a couple months since his passing, and it's hard to believe, but what an impact he had. And I know that obviously Sachs and Gould were close to him too, and you were involved in cancer blows. You could talk about him for a bit, and do you know anything that's going on with that organization as far as it moving forward with
I know it's moving forward.
Yeah.
I know that much. Details I don't know yet because it's so fresh. What happened is so fresh.
Right.
I'm sure Jens has more details about it.
Yeah.
Because Jens has always been more involved with that. But I'm sure we're gonna make whatever we need to make for it to go forward.
Yeah.
Because it's such a huge inspiration for everybody. Ryan's story and his mission in life.
Yeah.
How music changes people and saves people. And gives people life and inspiration. Um, Ryan, man, I met Ryan in 2008 at Banff.
Yeah.
I was playing with a group, and he was just on the wings, checking it out. And I came out and sorry, I came out and he gave me a big hug, a huge hug, and he said, "I didn't know you, man, but now I do,
Wow.
and we should play together." And from there on, we were like best friends. You know, he was such an inspiration, not only musically, but just as a human being. Even when Ryan was weak, even when Ryan was weak, and Ryan, when he was in those days that that every person that is going through something like that has, he was strong.
Yeah.
He was a superhero, man.
Yeah.
And I every day that goes by, man, I am thankful that I met Ryan Anthony, that I could be with Ryan Anthony on the stage, that I could be a part of Ryan Anthony's story, and that he gave me the honor of being close to him and his mission. I we have no idea how much of an impact in our community Ryan has had, and we will know until time goes by, and he becomes, or he is already, immortal in the trumpet community. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And every time you mention Ryan Anthony, the first thing that people do is smile, because he was that kind of a person. He touched people in such a positive way that everybody that related to Ryan, a way or another, have that, and that's a gift. That's a
Yeah.
gift. That's something that he gave us, and we should be thankful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely felt like you knew him, even if you didn't know him as well as you do. Because you're seeing this very personal and real struggle. On every day it was like on social media, and you couldn't complain after that, right?
No, he made it public, man. He made his dilemma public, and the only reason he did that because he wanted to inspire people.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure he left a legacy for the younger generations of musicians and people that were battling with this. It's so gigantic, man. Every time I think of Ryan, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because he did so much for all of us, man. Just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for asking about Ryan, because
Of course, man. I think
that's very
anytime there's
special.
an opportunity to bring him up, that we should, because you know
Amen.
I can't imagine
Amen to that.
what he went through, but the impact he had is, like you said, is impossible to overstate. So
And I try to be a positive guy,
you
even though,
generally are.
well, sometimes I am dark a lot of times, especially the guys of the group know, the guys in Boston Brass know. But I try to stay positive as much as I can.
With that
Um,
hair, you have to.
well, let's just say I don't have to spend $70,000 on it. Anyway, um, ah,
Hey, Jose.
so
I'm sorry. Were you going to say something else
no, no,
about that?
that and so when I would get negative and I would read something about Ryan, I'm like, what am I doing, man? I am such a punk, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, how dare am I complaining for something that is so trivial, whatever it was. because anything compared to that is trivial, dude. Doesn't matter what it is, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jose, you're doing a lot of great stuff, man. And I think
Oh, thanks,
everybody,
man.
I think everybody appreciates the trumpet karaoke videos, and you know, nobody, you missed the plane selfies. I'm sure taking those. Oh.
That was just,
but
it's
no, man.
for my mom, man. Always for my mom.
Uh,
And when I told my mom why I did it, she didn't like it.
Why did you do it? What'd you tell her?
You don't know that story?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I told her. I said, I do this because I am on planes all the time. I said, if it crashes, I want you to have a picture of it. She got so pissed. She got so upset.
Hey, I have another trumpet related question though, and if anybody's still watching, which there's 7 people right now, so you do a lot of recording in your home studio, right? Which is kind of what you're in right now. What are some things? Do you arrange much too, or are you just recording what people do?
I arrange some of the stuff. You know.
What would you say like are the biggest mistakes people arranging music are to start with? Like when you see certain arrangements and you see somebody writing for the trumpet in a certain way, you're
Overwrite.
Yeah.
Overwrite.
Overwriting. And what about
especially when you write for a brass player, you need to take into consideration that we need to rest. People don't take that into consideration.
Right.
And that infuriates me because I'm the one who's suffering when we're playing.
And what about when you hear people recording? Like there's so much online content right now, people recording stuff in their own practice rooms or on a speaker that might cost $200 or might cost $4,000 or $70,000 if it's hair. What
Bad hair.
Bad hair. What kind of things? What kind of advice do you have for people that are more novice at recording than you are? That's a big
topic.
question, I know.
Yeah, but it's important for first of all not to overload the signal. If you don't have good equipment, don't overload the signal. You overload the signal only when you know what you're doing with your equipment.
Yeah.
Don't overload the signal. Make sure that it's safe, that you're recording safe, not too high, neither too low. Keep a distance from the microphone that will sound good.
How far away would you say that is for a lot of people?
It all depends.
Yeah.
You know, it all depends. I record around 3 feet from the microphone for pop music. And for classical music, I get a bit closer, not too much. And then also don't aim at the capsule of the microphone if you're recording trumpet or brass.
Yeah.
Don't aim because that will overload the microphone, and then the sound's always going to sound like that. You know what I'm talking about.
I know it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And then also important, if you want to get serious about it, you have to treat your room.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. Just to make it so it's not so echoey or so it's.
And then there are some oh my God, I forgot the word in English. Some
sound panels.
No, some waves, like some different waves, different ranges that you need to tame down. Like the corners hold a lot of bass waves. So if you see my corners are treated, you know, you want to find out where in the spectrum of the equalizer of the room is that it rings more, and you want to try to bring those frequencies down. Frequencies is what I was gonna the word.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a long day. I apologize.
Well, that's all right. I'm not going to keep you long, but I was wanting to ask those questions because as we were
talking about, it's cool.
Because there's so many people now that are doing their self recordings, or these orchestras are doing the whole orchestra playing Beethoven 6 or something in their.
That's tough.
That's
That's tough. It's tough because you have to have somebody that understands about frequencies and rooms. And the good thing about it is that you usually get a video, so you see the room. you know, and that gives you an idea. If the room is too small, it's not good. If the room is too big, it's not good. If the room is square, usually not very good. You know, and this in the studios, you always see in the great studio,
Mm-hmm.
you always see you never see two walls facing each other. You always see things like this or weird shapes in order for the frequencies not to go like this, but just go around the room. You know, it's a bunch, it's a whole. That's why some people have spent $2 million in a room,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you can't recreate that.
no.
Once you record in a studio like that, and you have a studio at home, and you go A to B, you're like, yeah, I'll never be able to do that. What you can do though is because you're a trumpet player, you understand the sound of the trumpet, and you can tailor your equipment towards the trumpet. Don't buy a microphone because people tell you it's a good microphone. Buy a microphone because that microphone sounds good on the trumpet, which is the instrument you're going to record.
Yeah.
Go try preamps. Make sure you buy a preamp that is good for the trumpet.
So what recommendations do you have that are not crazy expensive? Nothing. It's crazy expensive. It's good, right?
Not really, but I mean, for a good preamp, you're a one-channel preamp on a lunchbox. It's called the frame that holds it. It's called a lunchbox, and those are called 500 preamps. For one of those, for a good one, the least you're going to spend is a grand, 800 a grand.
Yeah.
You know, now for a good converter, like top of the line converter, the minimum you're going to spend is $2,500 to $2,800. You
Wow.
know, and then it comes the microphone. You know, you gotta have a good microphone. So it's money that you spend, but if you spend the money in the right equipment, you're gonna spend it only once, and then you tailor. Like I have different preamps. That I have 4 or 5 preamps that I
Yeah.
use for different things, and sometimes I mix those sounds. You understand what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
mix the two preamps and the two microphones into one sound.
Yeah.
It all depends. You can start tailoring your sound to what you want and what you like. But if you're doing classical music, you know, a Millennia preamp is a good choice. You know, or a Grace is a good choice. Something that is very um, very that doesn't color sound, doesn't have a characteristic. You know, to the sound that is clean, a clean preamp for classical music.
Yeah. And those usually cost more than $750.
Well, the Millennia is probably like $900 for one channel. But if
Wow.
you want like the Millennia with 8 channels, that's easily 4 grand, $3,500.
Wow.
You know.
Well,
But
it's
hey, man, but it's it's what it is. You know,
well,
that's what we do. You
no, it's
know,
good.
we do sound. You know, if you are willing to spend 10 grand on a car, or $20,000 on a car, or $50,000 on a car, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, it's good if you have a job at Vanderbilt.
Hey man, I had this before I had my job at Vanderbilt.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No,
Well,
I mean, I'm lucky too because I started this a long time ago.
mm-hmm.
So I have been able to recycle equipment and try stuff until I got into a point where without spending a fortune, I have what I want.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, you do a lot of recording. I know people don't realize some of the stuff you're probably on, but have you done anything lately people would have heard?
Um,
People that
can't
watch
recall.
TV?
I can't recall, man. Well, not really because I haven't been in a studio per se in a long time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in a studio per se. I got a few calls to do stuff. Um, I rather some other members of the community to get that money.
Yeah.
Especially right now that I don't need that money that bad right now. So I know some other people need it more than I do. So
Yeah.
I think that's yeah.
Well, that's nice of you, man. And I appreciate you doing this interview tonight. It was a lot of
Oh,
fun,
my
man.
pleasure, man.
I know
Are you
it's,
kidding me? It's awesome, man. You're
yeah.
awesome. Thank you for doing this. You're creating a great space for the trumpet community. Um, Too bad you have a bunch of hacks coming up. I'm
next
sorry you couldn't get anybody better.
next week, like Doc Severinsen, and then
Yeah.
Jared, yeah, and Jerry Hay after that,
Oh
and
yeah.
Selena Ott,
I am so sorry, man. You
and
can't
Melvin Jones is after that. Do you know who Melvin is?
Yeah, of course I know Melvin. Melvin's
Yep.
crazy. Are you kidding me?
And
Melvin's awesome.
and then Jeff Kernow. He's going to draw a cartoon. I think
You, see, you
And
can't get anybody.
Rex Richardson's after that. I think.
Who's that?
I don't know. I don't know.
You can't get anybody good, man.
No, and no. Instead of getting all these good people, maybe I should learn how to play the Arbin book better.
No, you sound great. Shut up.
So
It was fun. It was fun to play with you, man. When we
it was fun, man. Anyway, well, look, for everybody that's on here, I'm going to sign off of Facebook, but thanks for watching. And I will see you guys later. So I'm going to stop
Don't miss
this.
next week. Next week is epic.
Next week will be very good.
Yeah.
I promise. All right. Hang on, Jose, and I'm going to sign off from Facebook. So thanks, everybody. Good night.